Hey, this is Steve for myothercareer.wordpress.com. I wanted to do a video today to kind of follow up on the last video I did and to talk a little bit about where ideas come from or where you can find ideas. I had some good correspondence with a couple people who stopped by the blog and saw my YouTube videos and were kind of concerned I seemed so down. I get that way every year around my birthday. I kind of take stock of the life that I had imagined I would be at right now in relation to the life I have right now, and I think it kind of came across that I was a little too down. I'm not really a depressed kind of guy. I got a good life, I got a good job, I got a great wife, I got a nice house, you know, I'm living very comfortably, so by no means do I consider myself any kind of failure. I just, you know, when you're a teenager, you have certain visions of where you're going to end up when you're 30, you know, and I'm nowhere near where that was, you know, and I don't think that's that abnormal, you know, or that abnormal. I think a lot of people, you know, when you're young, you see yourself being somewhere, doing something, working in a certain career, and then life catches up to you and you're not quite there. But that's really more what that was about. Last week, and finally challenging myself to do something about it. You know, I'm under no delusions of grandeur. I'm going to make it as a screenwriter, but then again, I kind of came to a realization I'm not doing anything to try and make it as a screenwriter. I'm just writing. And I'm not trying to pursue it the way I need to. So I'm not challenging myself to submit some screenplays next year. That's a step in the right direction. You know, I don't think it'll evolve into anything, but once, it's kind of like writing your first screenplay. Once you do it that first time, it's not as intimidating anymore. So that's more what that is about. Now I wanted to talk about a new story idea that I got and kind of where stories can come from. I'd mentioned that after finishing Serve Cold, I was going back to do a rebuild on Bystander, which is the first screenplay I ever wrote, and I've written like 6 drafts of it. This will be the 7th draft. I'm working on a total rebuild of that, and I've got almost all 50 some odd points outlined. I'm wrapping up Act 3. Then I'll get that tinkered with. But I'm already looking to what the next new project I'm going to work on and what I'm working on next. And the idea is, I guess you'd say it's kind of a drama, but I've never mentioned this before. My uncle actually was on the 1972 Olympic team. He actually made the U.S. Olympic team 3 times for steeplechase. And if you don't know what steeplechase is, it's a big giant hurdle. It's closer to what horses jump over, and they're spread around the track. And one of them has a water pit underneath it. And so it's kind of a distance race, but they have to jump over these big giant hurdles that don't move. So if you clip one, you know, with your trail leg or whatever, you're going to go down hard. But my uncle made the Olympic team 3 times for the 3,000 meter steeplechase. And 72, 76, and 80. Now 80 we boycotted, which was the year he would have probably medaled. He'd been placing between 1st and 3rd in all the international competitions leading up to that. But we boycotted that year, so never got a chance. But the first time he made the Olympic team, I was chit-chatting with him, and it's really an interesting story. He blew everybody out of the water in Metro Detroit when he was growing up, running track in high school. And he ran the 1 mile and 2 mile and then did cross country and just destroyed everybody. So he got a full scholarship to University of Tennessee. Now that's a member of the SEC. The Southeastern Conference in their track meets at the time did not run a steeplechase event, but they were doing a meet against, I believe, Wisconsin, who happened to have the best collegiate steeplechase runner, and he wanted to run the steeplechase. So they needed somebody to run the steeplechase, and so they asked my uncle, who was a freshman at the time, would you run in this race? And he's like, all right, you know, if only you let me do this, whatever. So his whole idea of practice was, well, I'm probably a better runner than he is at the actual distance, so I'll just figure out how to go over the hurdles the night before, and if I can keep up with him, maybe I can place. And he did. And not only did he place, he beat him. And this guy, I think, had the American record at the time, or the collegiate record, or whatever. But it was huge. I mean, first race, he beats the collegiate champion at the time. So the story goes on from there, and he runs in a couple other races against a couple other non-collegiate athletes that are, you know, top amateur athletes, and is winning, and goes to the Olympic trials, and makes the team, you know, and it's in the span of 6 months. He goes from never running this race before to making the Olympic team, and it's a really, really good story because just the type of struggles he has to overcome getting to that meet and leaving behind the races which he was good at. He ran the 10,000 meter. That was his race up in that point, and as a freshman was an emerging talent in a lot of the college sports papers and the track stuff and the runner's world type stuff. You know, they had him listed as an emerging talent, but he fell in love with steeplechase. He found his calling, and the more I learned about that race and what's involved, the more I just think it's a really cool story. And so I've decided that's actually what I'm going to write for my next new screenplay. And I've actually started outlining some of the stuff and adapting it. Now you'll see the term based on a true story, and the reason for that, and a lot of people don't realize, is that you know, a true story doesn't always fit into a 2-hour window. You have to kind of make up some elements, and you have to streamline certain story amounts so it fits and it hits those beats to make a compelling story. If you just tell it in a straightforward narrative, it can be boring in a lot of parts. So you have to pace and skip events and take creative liberties to make it. So I'm going to have to do some of that, but and I already know some of the areas and have some ideas. But it's a really interesting story. If anybody has seen the movie, oh shit, I can't remember. Hang on a second. I shouldn't be doing this. I should have done it ahead of time, but hang on. Okay. If you have seen the movie Prefontaine, which came out in 1997, or possibly a different movie by the name of, man, I can't remember. Who else was in it? Shit. At any rate, there's another movie Magnolia Pictures did that I think Tom Cruise produced that takes place. Steve Prefontaine was a great track runner at the time and kind of started to popularize the running movement in the early 70s. And the big meet that my uncle was at, actually, he meets Steve Prefontaine. I mean, he knows him. He would have competed against him, but that whole track meet that parts of those movies are based around in Oregon, which is, I think it was the Nationals at the time, is where my uncle was doing some of this stuff to qualify for the Olympics. So it's interesting because not only do I have a first-hand account, I also have perspective of other events going on at the time that my uncle was trying to make the Olympic team. So, and a couple movies actually that take place in that same period at the same event, which I don't know of any other story I could think of where he had that, or any real life story. So I'm kind of excited. The more I get into it, the more I'm enjoying researching the stuff, and you never know where a story is going to come from. Sometimes it just pops in your head. Other times it's smacking you right in the face. You know, it's an event you know, or you're connected to at a different level that you can't just come up with an imagination. And never be worried to just explore some story ideas. Because I'm really, really excited about getting into this. It'll be fun to cover a chapter of my extended family's life, because I mean, it was a big event. My mom and my uncle, you know, there's 9 kids in that family, so there was it was a big deal. You know, hometown boy makes good up in Detroit, and yeah, my uncle's seen a lot. I mean, he was at the Olympics when the big hostage thing went down, and yeah, it was interesting. So at any rate, that's kind of what I've been up to, and that's what I'll be working on while I do a rewrite on Bystander. I'll be fleshing that story out, and I just kind of wanted to share, you know, some ideas on where some stuff comes from. So, you know, if you have anybody or know anybody that can be a good story, you know, maybe it's just your grandfather in World War II, or your uncle trying to be the first person to graduate from college in your family, or your aunt opening her own bakery. I mean, there's a lot of stories that you could be very closely related to, which can inspire you and can be a really good exercise to write through. And it never hurts to write a new screenplay. You know, it may never go anywhere, but every screenplay you write, you get better at writing. So, you know, take that for what you will. And until next time, keep writing. This is Steve for myothercareer.wordpress.com.